We often talk about shopping addiction like it's some kind of joke, right? A cliche from a movie. But if you look in the anonymous corners of the internet, you find these raw, painful confessions that show a completely different story. It's a really deep personal struggle. And today, we're going to dive into those confessions to understand what's really going on with what one person called the plague of our age. It almost always starts with those four simple words. No frills, no excuses. Just a direct admission. As one person put it, I target something, and once I buy it, it loses all value, and I find a new target. You can just feel the exhaustion in that. They know they're trying to fill some kind of void, but they just don't know what it is. And what's really interesting is that people going through this don't just see it as their own personal failing. They see it as a symptom of our times, a kind of modern epidemic. You know that feeling, that constant pressure that if you just buy one more thing, that right thing, you'll finally be happy. But as one contributor warns everyone, you are mistaken. And listen to the language they use. This isn't just a bad habit. It's a feeling of being completely and utterly powerless. I mean, wow, a swamp I've fallen into and can't escape. It's so visceral. It's a trap. What someone else called a vicious cycle of deficiency. The more you sink, the more you want to buy. That feeling of being hopelessly stuck comes up over and over again. So here's the crucial takeaway from all these confessions. The people describing this behavior, they're not just admitting to a weakness. They know it's something more. They recognize it as a real, legitimate psychological condition that needs to be taken seriously. And guess what? They're absolutely right. There's a clinical term for this, oniomania. It's officially a behavioral addiction, basically in the same family as something like compulsive gambling. So this isn't just shopping madness, as one person jokingly called it. No, this is a real condition, and it's usually driven by some really deep emotional needs. This quote just floored me. It gets right to the heart of how confusing this compulsion is. The person is saying, look, other addictions are terrible, for sure, but at least they seem to follow some kind of logic. This just feels chaotic, totally nonsensical. And if you can't find the reason or the pattern, how in the world are you supposed to fight it? So, if the urge itself feels so random and illogical, what's actually driving it? Well, the people writing these confessions, they dig deep, and almost all of them land on the same answer. The shopping isn't really about the stuff. It's about trying to fill some kind of deep, emotional void. And this is the key question they seem to be wrestling with. What are you really putting in that shopping cart? Is it a new pair of jeans? Or is it a brief moment where you feel in control of your life? Is it a new phone? Or is it a 5-minute distraction from a much bigger problem you don't want to face? The cart gets filled with objects, but the need is for something you can't touch. And when you look at the triggers they identify, it all starts to click. It's stress, loneliness, just pure emptiness. One person called it a kind of escape, helping me ignore the real problems. For another, it was a direct reaction to a super restrictive childhood. So now they're trying to buy all the things they were never allowed to have. Whatever the reason, the shopping is just the symptom, the coping mechanism. It's not the cause. This really highlights the brutal emotional whiplash of the whole cycle. In the moment of the purchase, there's this incredible high, this rush. One person described it as a happiness that surpasses most others. But it never, ever lasts. It's immediately followed by this wave of guilt, shame, and the crushing realization that the original problem, it's still there. Only now it's buried under a mountain of debt and clutter. Now, compulsive shopping isn't new. But today, it has a brand new, incredibly powerful engine, technology. The people writing these confessions are painfully aware of how modern e-commerce has turned their personal struggle into a trap that's almost impossible to escape. I mean, just think about this frictionless funnel. Your credit card is already saved. One-click buying means there's literally zero time to second-guess yourself. Then you get the notifications, the last day of the sale alerts, creating this intense fear of missing out. People talked about getting sucked into Black Friday or Steam sales, buying stuff they didn't even want just because it was cheap. It gives them, as one user put it, a strange satisfaction. And this quote just hits the nail on the head.
The very perfection of the system is the problem. This person wrote, "This seamless experience fuels the addiction. Continuously getting new things quickly and without hassle creates a habit." In other words, the easier these companies make it for us to buy, the harder they make it for some of us to stop.
So what happens when the boxes start arriving and that momentary high is long gone? Well, this is where we see the true and honestly devastating cost of this compulsion.
And that's not me being dramatic. That's a direct quote from the husband of someone with a shopping addiction. It's just a terrifyingly real image, isn't it? It's not just a messy closet. It's a physical mountain of regrets and debt so huge that it literally blocks the door. The damage just ripples out into every single part of a person's life. You've got crippling debt, like this person paying off 30 installments. You've got the intense shame of having to sneak packages into your own home. The sheer waste of finding 9 pairs of shoes you don't even remember buying. And then, the most painful part, the damage to your relationships. Imagine realizing your own 9-year-old child knows you have a problem. But, and this is a really important but, amidst all of this darkness, there are glimmers of hope. The very same online forums where people share these confessions, they also become incredible support groups where they share real practical strategies for fighting back and taking back control.
So, what do they recommend? Well, first, you have to acknowledge it's an addiction, not a hobby. Then, practical things. Delete the shopping apps off your phone. Create friction like the 24-hour rule. Set hard limits for yourself. And one of the most powerful tips? Use cash. Actually handing over physical money makes the cost feel so much more real than just clicking a button. And finally, you have to do the hard work. Figure out what feeling you're actually trying to fix with that purchase. One person posted this quote from the playwright Arthur Miller, and it just stops you in your tracks. It puts this whole thing into a much bigger perspective. It's suggesting that this massive urge to consume is maybe the modern world's answer to a timeless human problem. What do we do when we're unhappy with our lives? And that leaves us with this final massive question. These confessions make it crystal clear that chasing happiness through buying things often just leads to more emptiness. So in a world that is literally built to convince us that the next purchase is the one that'll fix everything, the real challenge isn't just to stop shopping. It's to figure out what actually, truly fills that void.